I got the sizzle, but not the steak. I got the boat, but not the lake. I got the bread, but not the butter. I got the window, but not the shutter. But hey, I'm big in Japan. Yeah, I'm big in Japan. Here's what happened. I just got back from 3 glorious weeks in Japan. I love that place. It's always fascinating. But one thing I did this time that was different for me was to check out some of the listening bars they have in Tokyo. And if you're not familiar with it, there's a thing that started back in the 50s. Where it's just a little bar where the focus is on a really good sound system and listening to records. And they prefer vinyl. One of the places we went to had a CD player, but they weren't using it. Everything was vinyl. The one place we went into was they specialized in straight ahead jazz. I mean, they did hard bop, but nothing really past about 1959 or so. But the sound system was just insane. It was so good. I'd never heard a stereo sound like that, and it was a Frankenstein system made up of old Western Electric tube amps that had been scavenged from old movie theaters, and the speakers used to be Electro Voice something, but they had been modified in a way and added on to, and it was, I don't know, maybe a 4-way sound system. And it was just, the sound was stunning in this place. It was ridiculous. At the front table, right in front of the speakers, was a group of what I assume were regulars to the place. A lot of these guys looked like they were older than I am. And I made a request. I wanted to hear Sonny Rollins' St. Thomas, because I know that record is really high quality. I know the sound quality of that record, and I wanted to hear it on this system. And the one guy said to me, and I'm assuming this is what he said because he spoke Japanese, and it was like, hey, buddy, wait your turn. And what I finally put together is that these guys spend their days haunting the vinyl record stores in Tokyo and finding a record they like, and then they take it down to the bar to hear it all proper, as Alex said in Clockwork Orange.
What you got back home, little sister, to play your fuzzy warbles on? I bet you got little, say, pitiful portable picnic players. Come with Uncle and hear all proper. Hear angel trumpets and devil trombones. You are invited.
So they'd play their fuzzy warbles down at this listening bar. And they finally did put on Sonny Rollins just as a request and accommodation to me. And I never heard it sound so good. It was just so much fun, and everything sounded great, and everybody's having fun. And the regular guys are always involved in this animated conversation. They reminded me of the guys in Havana, in the old part of Havana where they gather in that park and discuss baseball, and they're arguing. Because these old jazz fans, I kind of suspect they were arguing over whether Roy Eldridge is better than Clark Terry, or there's, obscure jazz aficionado things. But it was a good time. The other two bars we went to specialized in 70s and 80s soul and R&B music. So, I was right at home there, and I loved it. And these places generally are run by, owned by the DJ, who has, besides a crazy great sound system, has a ridiculous record collection. One of the places had 14,000 albums. But we went to Little Soul Cafe, and it sounded so good. It was nice to be sitting in a place like that, and hearing music was just, the guy was playing deep cuts. I wasn't really familiar with a lot of it, but he did a segue. He had a Japanese version of Herbie Hancock's Tell Me a Bedtime Story, and he segued from that to Herbie's version of it, and then segued from that to another Herbie Hancock. It was just very cool. and usually I don't do this kind of thing, and I debated I'm sitting there enjoying the music, and I debated whether or not I was gonna do this, but I did it because I always would have wondered. I wanted to know, did they have my album? So I called it up on Google, and I went and showed this to the DJ. He went, "Oh, what song?" And at least I think that's what he said. And I said, "I don't know, Papa was a Rolling Stone." Okay, later. He was kind of annoyed with me. And I later found out that the etiquette is basically, they don't really take requests. They're not there to be a jukebox. But the guy accommodated me, and he put it on, and it sounded so good. And of course, Lauren, my daughter, and her fiance Mike, they were excited about it. And I decided to, I went back to thank the DJ, and I revealed my secret identity. I pointed to the album and to myself, and I pulled out my passport and showed him the name, and he went, "Oh, Michael Jackson, I know your name." And he pulls out Stevie Wonder's "Hotter Than July," and it's like this guy knew everything that I'd ever done, and it was very cool. A couple of days later, my daughter Lauren, late at night, she went to another one called Bar Luther, and she texted me. I was staying about 10 minutes away, and she said, "You should go to this other listening bar." And I go, "Nah, it's too late." Anyway, she did the same thing. Asked them if they had this album, and they did, and they played it, and she said, "That's my father." And they go, "Oh my God!" They got all excited, and so Lauren told me about this. She said, "You got to go to this place." So I did. It was my last night in Tokyo. I went there, and I sat down, and it's such a cool bar. It's down in the basement. You go down these steep steps, and then it's just dark as can be, but he's got this killer sound system. And it's just the atmosphere is just very cool. But he was playing stuff that I didn't really, he was in a ballad mode. He was playing Diana Krall and then Anita O'Day and just played like 3 ballads in a row. And I don't want to make him play this bumpy stuff. But he had asked me before, he said, "How'd you hear about this bar?" Because they don't get many Americans in there. And I said, "Well, my daughter was here last week and she said I should go." So then I did the same thing. I showed the album cover on the phone, and he put 2 and 2 together right away. Whoa! He knew who I was. And then it was batshit. You would have thought that Michael Jackson had walked into the bar, because the whole bar just went crazy, because the bartender starts telling them, announcing to them in Japanese that Bill Wolfer is in the house tonight.
これビルさんの若い頃の。
わーマジで。トゥラナ。やば。
And it was such an amazing reception. I've never been so fussed over in my whole life. They played the entire album, and I took photos with everybody. They made me sign the album, which I was happy to do. And it was just so much fun. I've never ever in my life have been fussed over like that. But it made me think. But I remembered afterwards that when the album first came out in 1982, Solar sent me on a promotional tour just by myself to go to various markets of the country, and I can't remember all the cities, but it was about a 2-week tour. And I'd show up, and the local Warner Electra Asylum rep WIA, we called them, Warner Electric Asylum. The local WIA rep would meet me and take me to a radio station for an interview or a record store. And I remember distinctly we went to a record store and nobody was there. This was like, it's exactly like the scene in Spinal Tap where they have an in-store event and nobody comes.
What are you doing to me here?
I'm not doing anything.
I thought we had a relationship here. I don't know what happened.
Business is terrible, Artie. What can I tell you? This is the truth.
And it was just like, okay. So I did that. And I do remember in Dallas, the guy took me to hear Freddie Hubbard was in town playing that night. And so I got to hear Freddie Hubbard, who was one of my favorite musicians. But so it was like a big difference. So I found out I'm big in Japan, at least in a couple of listening bars. And it was a great thing. And it kind of, for me, it kind of validates the whole idea of that I did an elaborate multi-part series about that album, because the album means a lot to me. But what really means a lot to me is that 42 years later, people still are into it. And let me tell you, on that sound system, in Bar Luther, he had Macintosh amps, he had a tube preamp, and he had the big old vintage JBL studio monitors, great big ones, probably 4414s. I don't know, I couldn't see them, it was so dark. But I'll tell you what, that album sounded good. Yeah, it was crazy, but they were so nice. And I promised them that I would come back the next time I'm in Tokyo. I'll go see them again, and I will happily. And I'm not going to request my own music, but I'll listen to some Quincy Jones or something. And it's a lot of fun. So if you're in Tokyo, check out the listening bars, because they're just so cool. And it's not just, they're cool even if you don't get to listen to yourself. I enjoyed the jazz, the straight ahead jazz place that had a monster sound system, but it was big fun. So that's my story about Japan. The rest of it was great too. I went to a lot of places I hadn't seen before, and I'll be back. I love Japan. So that's my story. You must subscribe, or someone will contact you if you don't subscribe. You're setting yourself up for trouble. No, I shouldn't say that. How do I get you to subscribe? People watch these things, they don't subscribe. I watch things, I don't subscribe. So I don't, how can I berate people for behaving the same as I do? But Mr. YouTube thinks that if you subscribe, then he should tell Mr. Algorithm to show this to some other people, right? So if you haven't, please subscribe, because I've gotten like, I don't know, in the last year it was like over 180,000 views, which is a lot. And I've also gotten up to a little over 2,500 subscribers, which is also a lot. But if you do the math, 2,500 is less than 2% of all those views. So nobody's subscribing. What? Come on. Nobody calls, okay? It's not an obligation. It's free. And I don't know why YouTube makes it such an important metric. So you got to subscribe, all right? And again, it's not for the money. Don't try this at home. Don't go to YouTube thinking you're going to make a fortune. Go buy lottery tickets instead. But if you do subscribe, I'm much obliged, because otherwise I feel like I'm shouting in the dark here. So comment, subscribe, like, share. This is not without obligation. You cannot just sit and passively watch. It's your turn now. There's only so much I can do. You got to push that button. All right. Thank you, and I'll see you next time. I got a lot more stories. Give me some encouragement so I do them. Okay? Over and out. Sayonara.